I go look at the original place.
It was made by Magic.
Does that work for you?
That works.
Okay, I'll shoot you both an email before they close, that way you don't have to hang out.
Okay. By the way, thank you. Everything's in there. She puts it in, you take it, everything's in there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do.
Yeah, thank you. You won't need the consent thing of the change thing, and then the two things that are on. I came over, it's rolled off.
Oh, the change fund,
The
the
change
auditor
fund.
will handle, you might hang out in the lobby just in case that one gets full.
Okay.
That's it, right?
There's the trapper.
How are you, my friend?
Busy, but I'm sure not nearly as busy as you.
Oh, you know,
Under
it's all
HR.
relative.
Yeah.
I'm a big Einstein fan.
You'll handle
It's
that
all
one
relative.
too, so,
Everybody's busy. It
I'll
just
hang
looks
out,
different.
see if they pull a
hang
change.
out,
I'll
see
be
if they
able
pull
to
the change off, if they don't, then you're good. And then I'll email you when we get close to those other items.
Sweet. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. I'm gonna go live with mics and camera. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. Supervisors, are you prepared enough?
What side of my house?
Yeah. I was having to do a little study.
I'll tell you this weekend. I'll get mine on Friday.
Good.
All right, good. Mics,
Where do you go to get yours?
mics are on live to Zoom. Are you ready?
Here in wherever the clinic, wherever you're at. Yeah. That's all?
Yes.
The board meeting will start in just one moment.
There you go.
Just take 3 minutes.
All right. Oh. We're not going into space yet. Good morning and welcome to the March 16th, 2021 Board of Supervisors meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
Mr. Chair, before we move into public comment, I would like to propose a subsequent agenda item. I move to discuss and/or take action on the appointment of a planning commissioner and find that the need to take immediate action came to the attention of the board subsequent to the agenda being posted. The urgency is that there is a current vacancy on the planning commission and their next meeting is prior to the next regularly scheduled Board of Supervisors meeting.
All right.
I'll move to put it on the agenda.
Supervisor Groves, are you seconding?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
All right, we have a motion from Supervisor Frazier and a second from Supervisor Groves. Susie, please poll the board.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox? Aye. Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Yes, thank you.
All right. If anybody has any issues with Zoom, technical issues, please use the chat function to address those technical issues. Otherwise, your comments should be done during public comment. Having said that, we will go into public comment. This time is for information from the public on matters not appearing on this agenda or within the consent calendar. All comments are limited to 3 minutes and must pertain to matters within the jurisdiction of this board. When addressing the board, please state your name for the record and address the board as a whole through the chair. No action or discussion will be conducted on matters not listed on the agenda. However, the chair may refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up or schedule the matter on a subsequent board agenda. Do we have public comment lined up on the Zoom?
Yes, we have Adrian Keys.
All right, Adrian.
Hey, thank you. It's Adrian Keys from Hayfork. I'm calling chiming in today to request an agenda item for a support letter for Senate Bill 59. This comes out of Santa Barbara. It's Senator Cabrillo. It is intended to extend the provisional cannabis licensing program at the state level until 2028. The provisional license program at the state is an incredibly important component to the functionality of the cannabis program across the entire state. About 75% of licensees are presently operating underneath a provisional license. And this program allows for local jurisdictions to authorize activities prior to CEQA compliance being 100% completed. You do have to show that you are in the process of completing this CEQA doc for your operation. All the site-specific requirements are still in place, but it's become very apparent all the way up the chain, all the way to the governor's office, all the way through all of our senators, through the entirety of CalCAN, the licensing department, that this CEQA issue is really causing a lot of jam-ups. And like I said, 75% of licensees statewide are in the same boat as our county is. It's not unusual. Each one of us is having slightly different difficulties with CEQA and difficulties bringing farms into compliance. But this is the pathway forward for our county, for Santa Barbara County, Humboldt, Mendocino, Lake, Sonoma, Santa Barbara, Los Angeles. The city of Los Angeles is in the same boat. The state maybe doesn't make it entirely clear in regulation that counties have the authority to offer these license types, but it is the inference. I will be on a call with the chief of licensing, the head of CalCAN, and their team this morning, hopefully before the next item that I'll be commenting on comes up on the agenda. Otherwise, I will be providing information from that conversation post this meeting. But I do please agendize the support letter for Senate Bill 59. I sent a copy into CAO Coons that was signed by our trade association in alliance with 4 other statewide trade associations representing over 500 unique businesses. Thank you for your time today, and that's it for me.
Thank you for your comments. Susie? Sir.
Yes, we have Dana Scott.
Hi, thank you. Dana Scott from Hayfork. I'm making this statement on behalf of Trinity County Agricultural Alliance. TCAA would like to request that the board agendize a cannabis program fee study for the public, preferably by your own accord, not by court order. We would like an update about the cannabis fee funds, including funds that are disappearing from the cannabis program funding and those sitting in other accounts, which haven't been returned for use in the cannabis division. TCAA further requests the board agendize an update from the Sheriff's Department on the satellite enforcement program to include costs, how it would be funded now and in the future, a scope of the program's intended enforcement goals, and a timeline of when this program would launch and when enforcement would begin. And lastly, TCAA requests Trinity County look into how it can apply for the CDSW Cannabis Restoration Grant Program in 2021, which was recently announced for the recommendation and enhancement of watersheds where licensed cultivation is taking place. Currently, the Cannabis Restoration Grant Program has the opportunity to grant funds in support of partnerships to clean up, remediate, and restore watersheds affected by cannabis cultivation and related activities. CDSW is seeking high-quality grant proposals for the cleanup and remediation of the environmental damage in watersheds affected by cannabis cultivation, and that supports the enforcement of watersheds, or enhancement, of watersheds or communities where cannabis cultivation occurs. Eligible entities include local public agencies within California, as well as nonprofit organizations such as RCD or the Watershed Fund. Anticipated total funding in the amount of up to $2 million, and the proposal deadline is May 14th, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. As far as I know, in relating to that item, I have been briefed on some of the grant money that has been approved and gone through. I believe it is RCD already for some of these illegal public site cleanup efforts. And we can have some follow-up on that. Susie, is there any more comments?
I do not see anyone else commenting in chat or raising their hand.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I would be interested in having the SD 59, was it agendized, maybe not just for the support letter, but at least to have a discussion on what it means and have a review from legal staff to see what it means.
I forwarded to, actually, you, Jeremy, and Margaret, we've been experts on it, and spoke with Jeremy a little bit about bringing it on April 6th. If that's the board's pleasure, we can bring it forward then.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I would like to see the financials that Dina has requested as well.
Specifically referring to the satellite program or referring to the citations and the program dollars?
All of it. She had several items on her list.
Okay. The satellite program, it's my understanding that that is a fully grant-funded program. That does not come out of the Canvas program, but we could definitely request that. It would probably come from partial Saxon and partial planning for building.
Mr. Chair, aren't we headed up on a mid-year budget?
Yes, we are, which will make a presentation to the board, which will encompass all expenditures and revenues.
So that's our normal pattern, is to review these either at budget time or mid-year budget to see where the money's actually gone for the first half of the year. And that should, do you have a timing on that? Should be soon.
It should have happened already,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
but we're scheduled for April 6th.
Okay. I didn't want to say that.
That's okay, I'll say it.
So they'll probably wait till then. And I recall last year, a lot of these same inquiries about the finances were brought up by members of the public. And when it did come time for the specific cannabis program budget review, no one was here to ask questions, unless my memory is wrong.
No, your memory is correct. In the 4 years that I've requested to have a full detailed ability to answer questions, we've received one question.
Yeah, so it's a lot of talk, and I think sometimes it's just challenging for the public to endure the time and process that, going down it line by line and things like that. So hopefully we can help build participation in this next one, and members of TCAA or other interested parties could join in and ask more specific questions at those times, so the department heads have the proper landscape to answer those questions and all their resources at hand. All right.
Chairman, we had a comment that it's hard to hear some of you, so I just ask that you remember to please use your mics.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is this better? I think so. All right. We'll move on to presentations. There's no further public comment. Clerk of the Board, item 1.1, receive an update regarding the coronavirus, COVID-19, and Trinity County, no fiscal impact. Thank you, Marcy.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Brown and Supervisors. Let me just get settled here. Marcy Jo Pezzle, Public Health Branch Director. We currently, at this time, have 5 active cases. Are you able to hear me okay? Okay. We currently have 5 active cases as of this morning, with 1 quarantine and no person hospitalized at this time. The total persons tested to date are 6,305 with 378 total confirmed cases. This information continues to be available on our Trinity County COVID-19 dashboard. We continue to have a fully staffed case investigation and contact tracing team. This includes 5 state redirected staff, CICTs, case investigators, and contact tracers, a public health branch liaison, and a public health branch nurse to consult when necessary on cases. We also have the ability to expand further CI and CT through our HHS team to address increased cases. I know that variants of concern have been in the news lately, so I just wanted to briefly touch on that. The Public Health Branch is collaborating with the California Department of Public Health and the Shasta Public Health Lab in establishing mechanisms to identify any infections in Trinity County with the variants of concern. At this time, there are no identified variants of concern circulating in Trinity County. Regarding testing access, the OptumServe site will be at the library here every Saturday from 8 to 4. They will also test children, which is really good news. The dispensing and assisting of Let's Get Checked tests will improve access without the Verily testing sites now in areas of Hayfork, Salyer, Junction City, Trinity Center, and Lewiston. The Hayfork Murray building is where those tests will be handed out, and that's Tuesday and Friday from 10 to 2. And then they'll be periodically circulating, staff will circulate those tests through posting at the General Store in Salyer, Junction City, Trinity Center, and at the Moose Lodge in Lewiston. So much of my time I think I'll spend on vaccine. I know there's probably lots of questions, and I'm going to try to give you the best update where we stand right now. So the combined totals right now for the Trinity County Public Health Branch and our partner clinics through our Mount Communities Hospital District or Healthcare District, the total doses allocated to Trinity County as of 3/10 are 5,300 doses. The total doses on hand are 2,174. Again, that's between the health department and the hospital, their 2 clinics. The total doses administered, 2,822. Total first doses administered, 1,829, and the total second doses administered, 945. We have fully implemented the MyTurn system. That is the statewide system that all counties must utilize unless for healthcare providers you have a specific electronic health record. But for the most part, MyTurn will be utilized statewide. We continue to have issues that we have to work around with MyTurn. One of the advantages of MyTurn is that it increases our throughput, which we're very happy about. Now we just work to make sure we have enough nurses to vaccinate, and so far we're managing to do that. We want to vaccinate upwards of about 500 people, 550 a day if we can. We still have some work to do to be able to get to that number. We're able to reach that number when we hold 2 pods, but not yet 1. The workarounds for MyTurn, as you know, the governor now has implemented where those age 16 to 64 with those specified chronic health conditions that put them at increased risk for severe illness are now able to register through MyTurn. And they list the specific conditions that put people at highest risk. So that no longer requires us to conduct a workaround for MyTurn. So people should be able to register MyTurn for those, with those conditions. The challenge for us was when the vaccines were first rolled out in December. We chose to prioritize those 18 to 64 with chronic health conditions and those 75 years of age and older due to the disease burden of COVID in those populations and the rate of severe illness that was happening in those populations. That was before the state decided to go to the statewide system that now the criteria is the criteria. So the challenge for us was giving second doses utilizing MyTurn to those persons that weren't yet eligible MyTurn. But after this weekend, we think that will be resolved because we will have vaccinated all those that received a second dose prior to the use of MyTurn. On Friday and Saturday, we are going to begin our second dose and first dose pods. moving forward. So on Friday the 19th, we will be providing second doses utilizing Moderna for all those seeking second doses. And we have 155 doses of Janssen vaccine that we will be administering first doses to persons that qualify and register in my turn.
How many? Sorry. How many doses?
155 of the Janssen.
Thank you.
On Saturday, and that clinic will be from 9 to 3. We continue to emphasize that if persons are having difficulty registering in my turn due to eligibility, they will continue to call the COVID Public Health Line at 623-8235. If persons do not have a computer or other means to register in my turn, they can call the my turn number, and let me just get that for you. It is also in the press release. That number is 1-833-422-4255, and that is open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Saturday, Sunday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The My Turn registration will open up today at after 2 p.m. I think after 2, don't quote me. The Saturday pod will be held from 9 to 12. That will also be a first and second dose pod. However, the only vaccine we'll be administering at that pod is Moderna. We only received 200 doses of the Janssen vaccine, and we're holding back doses of that so we can vaccinate our inmates in the jail. That is all I have, except I just want to emphasize one thing, that we really, the goal for us is to vaccinate, the low goal is to vaccinate 70% of our population. The high goal is to vaccinate 85% of our population. That gets us toward community immunity. And that's a heavy lift, but the Public Health Department and our partners have done an amazing job. We're so thankful for our volunteers, from our state nurses to our HHS teams, our DOT teams, our fire personnel, all those that are volunteering. We want to make sure that people get the message that vaccine prevents this illness and everyone should get this vaccine. It's safe and effective. And all those that are listening to this, I would encourage you, please talk to your loved ones and your family members and your neighbors. We will be mobilizing vaccine to remote areas in the county. We have a grant that we're writing currently that we're planning and hoping to be able to purchase a mobile unit to go to remote areas and vaccinate anyone in the county that wants it, and outreach to those persons and incentivize those persons, including incentivizing persons in those areas where they're off the grid or isolated and don't have a means to access, getting as close to them as possible, providing incentives of $20 gift cards to persons who get vaccinated, to put a little extra money in their pocket and help them with the costs. We also provide gas cards to those persons that are at or under 300% of the federal poverty level. And there's an attestation form that they simply have to sign saying that their income is below that for their family or as an individual. So be on the lookout for outreach and education materials. So we'll be pushing those out.
All right, thank you, Marcy.
Marcy, I have a couple questions. Okay, so it looks like you put out 1,829. For the first one, you have 929 left. That should be enough to cover the second dose. If my turn does not work again, as it didn't seem to work seamlessly last time, where do I tell the people that email me daily to get remedy? And Irina has been fantastic.
Yeah.
She's been unbelievable. I
Yes.
can't thank both of you enough.
I can't tell you the amount of work our team has put into the workarounds with my turn and just the dedication and hard work. Thank you, Supervisor Gogan, for that. So again, persons that are able to register in my turn, it is very straightforward. You go in, you click the boxes. If it states that you're eligible and persons think that they're eligible, they can contact that 8235 number, okay? If persons do not have a computer or aren't able to register, they're the ones that are going to use the COVID call line, the 833 number. The third category are persons that need a second dose, that qualify but aren't able to register in My Turn. They would call the 8235 number. So ideally, we want everyone that can register in My Turn to register in My Turn or try to register in My Turn.
Say with all of that maybe failing and they can't get through, don't have a phone, would it be fair for me to tell them to just show up on the day allotted and you will be taken care of?
That is really challenging because then we're assuming that they're eligible and we may not know that.
If they have the card?
Yes, if they have the card. We can do walk-ins.
Mm-hmm.
We can absolutely do walk-ins. And if it's for their second dose, yes. If they're at that 28 days. And if all else fails, just have them present and we will get them registered, absolutely.
And
Thank you.
There's a 3-day window either front side of that.
Yeah, it's a 3-day grace period because the reason we do that is because it's allowed. Number one, it doesn't change the efficacy. And also, depending on when a pod is, it may not land on the exact day. So yeah, 3 days before is the grace period that we've set.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate yours and Sabrina's work.
Oh, and our whole team.
Everybody, absolutely.
Yeah.
Supervisor Frazier, do you have any questions?
The only question I would have is, do you have any idea timeline when there may be a pod available in the southern part of the county? I know it's even from Hayfork, you're talking a 2-hour drive to Cat and Palm and road construction. So it's extremely difficult for people who want to be vaccinated in the south part of the county to even have an opportunity to get to Hayfork.
Thank you, Supervisor Fraser, for that question. I appreciate that because we are committed to going to every community. That I love rural medicine and rural health, and that's how you do it. You take it to the people. It's going to be some time before we get a mobile unit, and we know that. Part of our plan is to reach out to all faith-based entities in communities and any other leaders in communities to get the message out so we can get people to a specific place. And then I have vaccinated out of a trunk of a car before in other health departments, and I have no issues with doing that. It's simply with the weather getting better, going to those communities. So part of what we're doing right now is trying to mobilize outreach and education and how do we message to those persons to get them to where we want. And that's going to include, like I said, incentivizing. So I would ask all supervisors, please talk to your constituents in those areas. We will let you know when we're going to a specific area to vaccinate. And then either we'll just do walk-ups if they don't have the ability to register in My Turn. We want them to try to register. We want to keep doing that because that's where we're going to get the most data as we move forward with vaccination rates in our county. But we will work with all of you and community leaders to ensure that those persons in those remote areas get vaccinated, including working with other partners, our clinics and other vaccination providers to create a network in our county.
Thank you.
That was a long answer for a short question.
And last but not least.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Marcy. First, I wanted everybody that in my district that's contacted me has had just wonderful things to say about the pods and how efficient they are and how nice the volunteers are. So I want to relay that on to you that I have not heard one negative word once they got to the pods.
Yes.
So mine's kind of a global question here. In Europe, they're banning the AstraZeneca shot. Is that something of concern here, or are we using that shot, or is there something going on that we need to know about?
Yes, Supervisor Gross, thank you. We are not using that. And one of the things that I do in collaboration with team members is continuously working with CDPH and state partners and constantly reading the data on vaccines as they evolve, because this is so new. There's going to be many things that evolve. So I did hear that on the news this morning. I am paying attention to what vaccines are being used, and as time goes on, also, we're looking at the evolution of things that become a problem. So, for example, when we give vaccines, if there's a reaction that's outside of the normal, such as, a sore arm is normal, but if they have systemic reactions that are outside the normal, we have to report that in a system called VAERS, which is the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. And so there's all this data that everyone's tracking, so things evolve as you go along, and that's why the AstraZeneca was pulled. They started to find things that they weren't happy with. So we haven't heard anything about that with the Moderna or the Janssen that we're using right now. In fact, the good news is that with the Moderna vaccine, the rate of anaphylactic reactions to that vaccine is lower than flu. So that's really encouraging. However, we're still not going to vaccinate those persons in our pods for safety reasons. But just so you and our public know that as things change with vaccines, we will absolutely let all of you know and let our constituents know.
Thank you, Marcy.
All right, if there are no additional questions from the supervisors, so I'd open it up for public comment. Susie, is there anybody having public comment?
I see none.
All right. Thank you for your information and efforts, Marcy. Next item is Health and Human Services. Item 1.2. Adopt a proclamation of appreciation which recognizes March 2021 as Social Work Appreciation Month and March 16th, 2021 as Social Work Day. No fiscal impact. And who do we have the pleasure of hearing about this item from? Liz, are you there, Liz? Or?
I'm under the impression that this was coming from Health and Human Services.
Supervisor Brown, this is Mike Catoni, Deputy Director for Health and Human Services.
Thank you, Mike. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you. So you have the proclamation there in front of you, and I just kind of wanted to take a moment to provide a little bit of context for you and the board and the folks that are watching about the work that our social work staff do in our child welfare and adult services units here at HHS. So basically, child welfare and adult services, although they serve different populations, are very similar in their basic functions and structure. They both have as a core function receiving and responding to reports of abuse, neglect, and exploitation of both vulnerable adults and vulnerable children. And both programs have some capacity to provide long-term case management and support to those folks. And basically, so both programs receive reports. When they receive these reports, a social worker goes and investigates the allegations to figure out if abuse has occurred. They provide intervention, develop an emergency plan when appropriate, identify issues that the client and family are facing, and then work with the client and family to develop a plan to mitigate those issues. As part of those plans, they conduct assessments, work with the client and family to establish goals, identify resources, arrange for provision of services, and then they also work to monitor that plan on an ongoing basis to ensure that those issues are being addressed. So they work with that until kind of the level of risk is addressed, and then when it's safe to do so, they close the case. Both child welfare and adult services have as a fundamental goal keeping clients as much as possible in their own home, or if that's not appropriate, then with family when it's safe to do so. And then only when those options are not safe do they look to find placement options out of the home, sometimes out of the county, when it's necessary for the safety of the client. Both child welfare and adult services also have court processes, and those need to be followed in order to ensure that clients and families' rights are protected and that services provided are in the best interest of the client. A little more specific information about our programs. Our child welfare unit has a staff of 16. Currently have 54 children in placement, and 14 of those are placed in the county. Those cases can be open from any time from 6 to 18 months, depending on circumstances, and then depending on whether or not adoption is warranted. Right now, we have 7 family maintenance cases where the children have been returned to family, but the case is still being supervised by the court and by the department. Our child welfare unit receives, on average, about 18 reports per month. And we also have 16 resource family homes approved right now, 11 of those being in Trinity County, 4 in Shasta, and then 1 in Humboldt. And then, just so you know, so our social workers and child welfare are required to see every child that's in placement in person at least once a month. And they also review the case plan with the parents on a monthly basis. And then they hold child family team meetings at least once every 6 months, and sometimes more depending on circumstances. In adult services, they have a staff of 10. They also receive about 18 reports a month, interestingly. They have about 30 open adult protective services cases right now, and another 40 cases that are what we consider kind of long-term case management, either under conservatorship or our representative payee program, which is a money management program. And then also want to mention our in-home supportive services program, which is it's probably one of our best options really in the county to provide services to both adults and children with disabilities. And that allows those persons with those services to stay at home in the county and stay safe long term. We currently have about 247 IHSS recipients in the county. About 151 persons also in the county who are providing services to those folks, to the tune of about 17,000 hours of services per month in total. So it's a really good program that some of our social workers work in. So that's just basically just provide some context for the proclamation that you're about to review, and I appreciate you letting me take the time to just give you a little bit of information about our programs.
Thank you so much, Mike. Do we have any technical questions from the board? Otherwise, I'll go ahead and I'd like to read the proclamation. Whereas the social work profession for decades has been dedicated to improving human well-being and enhancing the basic needs of all people, especially the most vulnerable among us. Whereas the year's Social Work Month theme, Social Workers Are Essential, embodies the heroic contributions of the social work profession to our nation, including the work social workers have done to settle our communities during these times of pandemic and economic uncertainty. Whereas social workers have always been present in times of crisis, helping people and communities recover from natural disasters. Whereas social workers work in all parts of our society to empower people to live to their fullest potential. Whereas social workers for generations have advocated for positive changes that have made our country a better place to live. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Trinity hereby proclaim March 2021 as Social Work Month and March 16th, 2021 as Social Work Day in Trinity County, and call upon Trinity County citizens to join the National Association of Social Workers in Trinity County Health and Human Services in celebration and support of the social work profession. We haven't passed it yet, so I won't read the last line.
I'll move to adopt.
All right, Susie, we have a motion from Supervisor Groves and a second from Supervisor Cox. Please poll the board.
Supervisor Cox? Aye. Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Govan?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Right. And Chairman Brown, we did have Director Rick Tippett had raised his hand. I'm not sure if he had a comment on
Oh.
that.
Yeah, and I guess I think maybe there should have been public comment. So I apologize for that. Mr. Tippett, do you have a comment? Maybe it was a mistake.
Now, once I figure out how to lower my hand, I will not have a comment.
All right. Thank you very much, Mike. The proclamation speaks for itself, and we appreciate everything you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Our next item, Human Resources 1.3, present the 2020 Annual Safety Awards to the Department of Health and Human Services and the Office of Emergency Services Manager Ed Prespley. And the floor is yours.
Good morning, Chairman and Board. Rebecca Cooper, Trinity County Risk Management. Each year, Trindle Insurance Fund recognizes an individual and/or department from each member county for their efforts in workplace safety. A nominee and/or department for this award should have demonstrated one or more of the following traits listed below: a high level of safety awareness in day-to-day tasks, high level of participation in the county's loss prevention program, a notable safety suggestion adopted by the member county, and identification of a workplace safety hazard or unsafe work practice or procedure. This year, Trinity County has nominated a department and an individual. I'll start with our department. To Health and Human Services. Safety is defined as the condition of being protected from or unlikely to cause danger, risk, or injury. 2020 was a year of uncertainty and unknown. We were all taken by surprise of the devastating role that COVID-19 would soon play in our lives. As county employees and members of the community, there was going to be questions and concerns. Health and Human Services employees have dedicated countless hours of their time to manning and facilitating COVID testing sites, conducting contact tracing to help minimize community-wide infection, and most recently manning and facilitating the vaccination distribution sites. All staff, without hesitation, have made themselves available under stressful circumstances and have each stepped up to the plate to ensure their community and their coworkers are protected. It is hard to communicate the level of detail that has gone into making all of this possible, but it's very clear that Health and Human Services was the definition of safety this past year. It is with an abundance of gratitude on behalf of Risk Management to congratulate Health and Human Services staff for their continued dedication in keeping our county safe. Charmy, would we possibly be able to have a picture of you with Marcy accepting it on behalf of the department? Thank you. Jeremy, and please this way. Which way? Thank you. Congratulations, Sir Chair. One, two, three. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Next, we have our individual awards. Great communicator, determined, resourceful, perspective, and actively engaged are just a few characteristics that Ed's peers have used to describe him. Defined as rural and covering 14,000 square miles, it is apparent that radio and cell communication within Trinity County can be very challenging. In an ongoing project, Ed implemented an expanded communication practice for emergency response to ensure that even when formal communication was down, the community would still have a way to relay an emergency to safety personnel. Providing protective equipment during a global pandemic was pertinent, and Ed ensured to deliver personal protective equipment to county staff and ensure that designated county employees who needed a respirator were fit tested for compliance. To top it all off, some of California's worst fires took place in 2020, and there was never a doubt that Ed's presence would be known to protect and serve. Ed's persistence to ensure his community is safe are impeccable. It is with great honor on behalf of Risk Management to thank you, Ed, for your continued dedication to keeping our county safe. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Any board members have any comments they'd like to make?
I just would like to congratulate you all and say thank you for the job that you do, and so much of it is behind the scenes. We don't see it, so it's really nice to see these public displays, and to hear your words to really describe what it is that we mean when we talk about service and public safety and responsiveness. So, thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
I didn't prepare anything, but what I'd like to say is none of this happens in a silo. It is with the support of our superiors and the board. Things like this are possible and just continue to happen. So I just appreciate being recognized, but I really am accepting this on behalf of everybody that was out there doing the work and helping this great county. Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right. With that, we will move on to the consent calendar. 9:45. These items include routine, non-controversial matters and will be acted upon by the board by one roll call motion. If a member of the public has any questions or comments on an item on the consent calendar, they may provide them now. A member of the board or staff may request an item be pulled and considered separately. Supervisors, do you have any items to pull, rearrange for the consent calendar?
Yeah, 2.16 for me.
2.1. Anybody else? That's after. This is just for the consent calendar. All right. Other than item 2.16, is there anything else? Are there any members of the public? All right.
No movement on Zoom.
All right, I would entertain a motion for the adjustment.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All right, Susie, you have a motion from Supervisor Rose and a second from Supervisor Frazier. Please pull the board.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Gokin?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, we will move to item 2.16. Approve an agreement with California Department of Transportation, Caltrans, to oversee the construction of a traffic signal at the intersection of SR 299 and Lance Gulch Road, and authorize the Director of Transportation to execute the agreement. $65,000 from the road fund, and I assume we have Director Tippett on there. Is your hand up? Are you raising your hand yet?
Nope.
Please go ahead.
If you need me to.
So, Rick, my question, my question is that we're showing $65,000 out of the road fund. My recollection from several years ago when we decided to do this was that this was all paid for upfront out of the original monies, and so why are we having to cough up another $65,000?
It was about 50-50 actually that we had remaining road funds or TIP funds to pay for the project, and then we had a change order that needed us to go further into some of the we were using at the time Safe Routes to School funds to pay for a change order. This was money that was actually set aside at the time to do inspection. It was $100,000. It's just I was showing that we had designated that already from that account. And actually to have them do the inspection was cheaper than what we had originally budgeted for. So we are good on that side. I do have some extra work that's coming up in a future meeting, but we have actual federal funds that are paying for those items. So can I answer any other questions?
Extra work on that intersection?
Yeah, Caltrans is asking us to pave the road after we cut the loops in so that there's pavement over the loops and water doesn't get in to cause them problems. And that was something that they were earlier not asking us for.
Okay. And will this finally finish the Lance Gulch?
Yes, and it's actually the last, as you know, it's the last component of it. Our environmental controls, which is planning and landscaping, is wrapping up too right now. So when we get this signal installed, that should be the end of it. And this contract is the last major piece that I had to worry about, making sure that we had the right construction inspection services to get the signal installed. And fortunately, Caltrans was willing to step up and do the work for us and help us out rather than have to go out and bring a consultant out of Sacramento.
Okay, and I am getting my antiqued lights?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. All right, Rick, it's been something like 28 years in the making, so it'll be good to see it finished.
Rick, I have a quick question for you. What's the total cost of this one stoplight?
It's about $700,000, but it incorporates many other things than just the stoplight. It incorporates striping and some other items of correcting some conduit work to make sure that the signalized intersection works better.
So 800,000 plus this money here?
Yes. Yes.
Did I not see somewhere prior to me being a supervisor, this was about 500,000 something? No? That was usually the cost when we installed with PVC piping or conduits, but a couple of years back, Caltrans required us to go to steel conduits, and also the paving is another issue that is unusual for traffic signals that does drive up the cost overall. But from my experience installing over 60 traffic signals, it actually makes it a much stronger system, especially in areas where you have heavy weather. Thank you.
Any additional questions for Director Tippett? All right. Seeing none, is there any public comment on this item? Susie, anybody out there in Zoom?
Chairman Brown, I am not seeing any movement.
All right. Then you could entertain a motion on this item.
With that, I would accept 2.16 as presented.
I'll second.
All right. Susie, we have a motion from Supervisor Groves and a second from Supervisor Cox. Please vote the board.
Supervisor Cox? Aye. Supervisor Groves?
Did we ever mention roundabout? Yes, I'll say yes.
We'll go back to that.
Supervisor Gogan?
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Tippett. Before we move on to the next item, I do have a subsequent item to bring. I forgot to bring it earlier in the meeting. I apologize for that. It is a time-sensitive issue regarding the Board of Forestry and a letter of more or less recommendation / opposition of their recommendations. So that letter will be circulated to your email here shortly, and it will be considered a county matter.
So then as a point of order, should we wait 7 minutes?
No, because it's a subsequent, we have to move to hear it, and then it's heard at the end of the meeting.
I'm just saying that if it's part of county matter, should we start it?
No. Jill, it's not
Well,
a
that's
county
the
matter,
public
it's not a
hearing.
part of the public hearing.
Yeah,
It's a subsequent item that will add to the end of the agenda.
I just missed my window at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
So having said that, is there, anyone entertain a motion on that?
Did you make the motion?
Yeah.
I can make the motion. I move to add subsequent item,
7.2.
yeah, 7.2 to the end of the, or to county matters for discussion.
I will second that motion.
And this is Margaret. We just make sure the record is clear that the information received was obtained after the posting agenda and requires immediate action prior to the next agenda. Just make sure we have that as part of the motion.
Do I need to restate that?
Nope, you can just concur with it.
Okay, I concur with that information.
And Chairman Brown, just so I'm clear, we're adding a letter of support
There is,
or an appointment?
there were two emails I asked to circulate to the supervisors that had the information. One is the background information and proposed regulations, and the other is a draft letter of support, a template from RC for counties to utilize or to draft their letter
Okay.
stating their reasons for.
Okay, so the item will be to authorize you to sign a letter of support.
Correct.
Thank you. Would you like me to pull the board?
Yes, please.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox? Aye. Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. So we have 5 minutes until our public hearing. I suppose we'll just do a quick 5-minute break and reconvene at 10 o'clock or 10:01. Thank you.
Look at your email.
Sorry.
The first one came out, or before the meeting started, the second one's coming out right now.
open up our 10.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And let me bring everything back. Okay, now you can.
All right. Welcome back. We will begin our 10 a.m. public hearing. Begins with solid waste, item 3.1. Conduct a public hearing to consider adopting a resolution which establishes a schedule of fees for waste disposal and provides for appropriate exemptions and credits for the 2021-2022 annual solid waste parcel fee billing. No impact to the general fund, revenue estimated in the amount of $900,000 to the solid waste enterprise fund. Thank you, Diane.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Diane Rader, Deputy Director of Solid Waste. This is the first in our series of public hearings for the annual parcel fee billing. And we are proposing no changes to it. It's still $100 per unit for the year, and we're still going to be issuing the cards with the billings. Please note when you get your bill, then there is the cards in the middle of it. So make sure and hold on to those so that you have access at the transfer sites. Without being in the billing system, then there's a $2 surcharge each time you go to the dumps. I think that's it. For new supervisors, then we have a residential unit is what we base the $100 on, and then in the resolution, then there's a schedule of land use calculations that base off of that single unit for other various uses of the land. And I think I'm done.
All right. Do we have any technical questions from the board?
Actually, this is a public hearing, so.
There's no questions.
So you're just going, you're sitting over, listening to what the public has to put input on.
Okay. So is there any public comment on this item?
Chairman Brown, I am not seeing anybody reaching out on Zoom.
All right. Well, I guess then we'd entertain a motion. Is that right? Is there a motion on this resolution?
Close the public hearing and bring it back to the board.
Yeah, you close the public hearing, and as I read the agenda, that's all we're doing today.
Hearing to consider adopting a
We're adopting a resolution as well.
Okay. Oh, it's right there.
Can I ask for a question then, or no?
Oh, yeah. I think it's okay with me.
I just have had one person ask if they pay the, say, $100 for a residential fee and arrive at the transfer station and forget to bring the card, is there a listing that you can look at, or do they still have to pay the $2 surcharge?
We have issued a master list of who's been billed in the system so that the attendant can go through and find the name and look them up for that time so that they don't have to pay the extra fee.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, would entertain a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
All right. I'll second. Susan, we have a motion from Supervisor Groves and a second from myself. Supervisor Brown, please pull the board.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox? Aye. Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
You put that barcoding process I was talking about last year?
Yes, I actually.
That is it for our 10 a.m. public hearing. We will now move on to reports and announcements, item 4.1. Reports from department heads. Susie, please let me know if there are any department heads raising their hands, eager to report.
Looks like we have Director Hamilton.
All right.
Hi, good morning. This is Liz Hamilton, Director of Health and Human Services and Office of Emergency Services. And I just wanted to say thank you to the board and Trendell and County Risk Management for the recognition of staff earlier this morning. I wasn't able to jump in quick enough, but I just wanted to show my appreciation for staff and all the work they do, and for your support of the board. Thank you.
Chairman Brown, we have Director Hunter would also like to give a report.
Please.
Good morning. I wanted to just touch base on the cannabis program. I know there's a very urgent situation going on in the program, and at this time I've just been getting up to speed on the transition plan, the status of the transition plan, and the program since the departure of Senior Commander Margie DeRose. So at this time, I don't have a lot. I would rather not go into details as we're still forming our strategy and developing the options to move forward. But I want to assure you that work is being done. We understand the urgency of this issue, and that I plan to come back on April 6th with a detailed report and some options for you to further consider as well. And so I will leave it at that, and just have more details and much more information for you at the April 6th meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hunter. Susie, any additional department heads?
I am not seeing any other department heads unmuting or reaching out via chat.
All right. Then we will move on to the next item, item 2, sub-item 2, report from the County Administrative Officer, Dr. Jones.
No, nothing new to report, thank you.
All right. And sub-item 3, report from members of the Board of Supervisors. Start down on the right, Supervisor Frazier.
Not a lot to report. I did meet late last week with Christy Anderson from Environmental Health. We met in the field with members from the U.S. Forest Service. We had law enforcement and some forest management there to look at illegal trash sites that are around the Post Mountain area and talk about how we could move forward with cleanup efforts. So I think hopefully something good will come of that conversation. We did have Ted MacArthur there. We had Chris Losey there. So we had some, we had good representation, and we saw some incredible sites. So, and also I did on Saturday, I attended a meeting a public meeting in Mad River of people who lost homes and stuff in the August complex, and heard some stuff, what they need and concerns they have moving forward with cleanup and stuff like that. So not a lot to report, but some stuff is happening.
Have you found that people are satisfied with the FEMA response and support?
For the most part, there are some people, as always in rural areas, that fall through the cracks. They make too much money to meet the requirements, but not enough money to actually be able to go forward without some help. So there are still some issues that are being worked out, but environmental health has been extremely helpful, working with those people and pointing them in the right direction.
Overall positive?
Overall, fairly positive.
Good to hear.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Frazier. Supervisor Gogan.
Oh, let's see. I was at a new supervisors, all the new supervisors, but a new supervisors institute session for 5 hours last Thursday and Friday. And it was just to keep us up to date on certain aspects of, it's what CSAC puts it on, of their multiple divisions that they have. I met with Crystal Bennett from Behavioral Health for a couple hours and kind of got up to date with what's going on there, and I'm going to have another meeting with her soon enough I think it was Sunday, I listened in, did not participate, but listened in on the SAFE meeting. And I think tomorrow night I'm going to the Trinity County Fairgrounds Directors Meeting. And then also, myself and Keith, being members of TMC, we're at an all-day meeting, Tuesday, Wednesday, Keith?
Yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday, I think it was 9 o'clock till 4 o'clock, both days.
Yes. Wednesday, Thursday.
Wednesday, Thursday, and I think it was a productive meeting, so that worked out well. And that is it for me.
All right. Supervisor Groves.
Yes, you threw me by skipping over Jill, but I get what you're doing now. So, yes, I had the two-day TMC meeting. What's notable for the public on this is that the flow regime this year is going to be at the extreme dry level. We approved a flow pattern, which is very similar to patterns in the past. The anticipated inflow into Trinity Lake this year is 504,000 acre feet. It may, with these other rains, hit 510,000, but for the average is closer to 1 million, around 900,000 to 1 million. That shows that the lake at this point might be about as high as it gets for the whole year, which is going to be very sad for the North Lake. Also, I had refinements through the TMC the previous week, and that continues to move forward. There we've also passed along, the refinements is broken into two groups, the administration and the science. I am on the administration side, and I've asked TMC to appoint Liam onto the science refinement, so we'll have say there for the first time that we've been able to have that go forward with having much better coverage for the TMC. And that is all. Thank you.
I would just add to that, it appears, Keith, that we will, barring a miracle, not be able to pull out of the critically dry year.
Right.
Of the 5 stages that we have, extremely wet, normal, dry, and critically dry, we are solidly entrenched in the driest of the 5 conditions that we could have, which gives us the lowest amount of acre feet of water that will come down the Trinity River. And it also triggers a 25% reduction in the water that goes over the hill, Keith?
Yes.
So we will be sending, per our contracts with the central and southern part of the state, when we fall into the critically dry year, we can cut back on our promise to them by 25%, and we will be.
To give you an idea how short we are, within the next 2 weeks, we would have to have about 12 inches of rain to get to dry.
All right. Supervisor Cox.
So, excuse me, I also attended the CSAC training with Liam and Dan. Did a little LAFCO one-on-one with Colette Sanchez, and pleased for that. And met with the Forest Supervisor Ted MacArthur and District Ranger Tara Jones. Discussed forestry and fuels, the August recovery process. Tara's the lead on that project. And I just continue to be really impressed with her. Glad that she's here. Sad that we're going to lose Mr. MacArthur back to the Six Rivers side, but trusting his replacement will be just as terrific. Also talked about wildfire preparedness, recreation, discussed 3 of the boat ramps out of the lake and the situation at the campgrounds. The March Town Hall meeting was great. It was productive, it was informative, Sheriff Saxon was there to talk, and also Travis Finch of Velocity. They both answered lots of great questions. If you're interested, the link to the recording is on my website, so that's just jillcoxtrinity2.com, and you can check that out if you would like. I also visited a prescribed burn site up on Jackass Ridge. It's a project that is being handled by the Watershed Center on land owned by the Highland Arts Center. And that ended up being very different than I envisioned that it would be. So it was really nice to have that guided, instructed observation and overcome in my head what a prescribed burn might entail. So if there are others that maybe are or were equally uninformed, let's say, it's good to go look at that and realize that what they clear out before they burn is really appropriate. I pictured that you would end a prescribed burn with something that looked black, and it doesn't. So it's just so nice. I mean, historically we know those are really helpful, but seeing it is believing. I enjoyed that, so.
Depends on which agency is doing the burn.
Fair, maybe.
All right, thank you for your report out. At RCRC meeting last week, the main takeaway is the subsequent item I added, so we'll be going over that shortly, so I'll save it for then. With that, we will go into county matters. These items include non-routine or controversial matters and are listed alphabetically by department. A member of the board, staff, or public may request that an item be heard out of order. And we are going to change the order around here. So item 5.1 as well as item 5.2, we are going to move to the end and put it after 5.6. So after 5.6, we will go into, I think we will go into 5.2 first and then 5.1 last. As long as that is all right with the board. Do I need a motion or can I just do that? Probably one. All right, so first item is Human Resources, item 5.3. Approve the job description and set the salary range for Staff Services Analyst 1 at range G194 and Staff Services Analyst 2 at range G204, effective March 16th, 2021. And Shelley, go ahead.
Good morning, Shelley Nelson, HR Director. So the county currently recognizes the Staff Service Analyst 1-2 classification. However, the job descriptions are through the state Merit System Services, which is only used for state-funded welfare positions. And it has been requested that similar Staff Service Analyst 1-2 classifications be developed and adopted for the use of other county departments. So attached to this agenda item are the job descriptions that I'm bringing forward to you to review and approve. And we would set it for the same salary range that already exists at G194 for Staff Service Analyst 1 and G204 for Staff Service Analyst 2. And in the job descriptions, you know, the duties are similar in responsibility scope, similar to the state's position, so there's really not a great difference there.
All right, do we have any technical questions from the board? Seeing none, is there any public comment on this item? Susie?
Chairman Brown, I am not seeing anybody.
All right, then I would go ahead and look for a motion on this item.
So moved.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Susie, we have a motion from Supervisor Groves and a second from Supervisor Frazier. Please pull the board.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox? Aye. Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Next item is 5.4. Approve the allocation of positions listing effective March 16th, 2021. No fiscal impact.
Thank you. So typically I have this item under consent. However, the staff service analyst, it was pending approval of that we would have been adding it to this allocation listing. So the allocation of positions listing is actually a complete list of all job classifications that are allocated to each department. The classification must be allocated within a department in order for the department to actually fill the position. The classification list is maintained by Human Resources, and changes are made to it periodically throughout the year as it's needed to develop or remove classifications. Workers' compensation, general liability, cyber liability, crime and bond, and medical malpractice insurance premium costs, as well as other employment benefit costs that we recognize as OPEB. Their premium allocations are calculated based on a number of employee allocations within each department. And in order to develop the budget for fiscal year 21-22, an allocation list must be approved by the board. And each department has reviewed and confirmed accuracy of the allocations as presented. Under the discussion section of the staff report, I've highlighted all the changes that any of the departments have requested to be made.
Any technical questions from the board? Any public comment from the public?
Chairman Brown, I am not seeing any movement on Zoom.
All right, you could entertain a motion.
So moved.
There we go.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Supervisor Groves, a second from Supervisor Cox. Susie, please pull the board.
Supervisor Cox? Aye. Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Item 5.5, modify the salary range for an agricultural project specialist, 1 field aid from P732 to P736, effective March 16th, 2021, $14 per hour from the Agricultural Commissioner Department for actual hours worked.
So the Agriculture Commissioner Department does have this seasonal allocation of 0.3 full-time equivalent that's approved on the allocation of positions. And this classification is a temporary extra help seasonal position, and it was set at a minimum wage last year of only $13 an hour. The approximate 4-month season for 2021 is approaching, and before we can recruit for this extra help seasonal position, I do need to adjust the salary range to meet the new minimum wage of $14 an hour for 2021. So appreciate your review and approval.
All right, are there any questions from the board regarding this? Hearing none, do we have any comments from the public?
Chairman Brown, I am not seeing any movement on Zoom.
All right, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
I will second.
Susie, we have a motion from Supervisor Frazier and a second from Supervisor Gogan. Please pull the board.
Supervisor Gogan?
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox? Aye. Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shelley. Next is planning and zoning. Item 5.6, adopt a resolution vacating a public easement along the boundary lines of assessors parcel numbers 024-510-045 and 024-510-046, located on the southeast corner of the intersection of Martin Road and State Highway 299 in Weaverville. No fiscal impact. And who do we have? Do we have Director Hunter speaking to this?
Yes.
Chairman Brown,
Yes.
before we go there, I'd like to just remind you that you have received additional backup for this item. You received two things. One was the signed final version of the Planning Commission resolution, because that wasn't available to us prior to our required posting deadline for the agenda.
All right.
And the second is a finalized version of the resolution for you guys to adopt. There was a draft version of that resolution in the packet, but the finalized version is what you received this morning.
Okay. Thank you. Director Hunter, go ahead, please.
Kim Hunter, Building and Planning Director. The Planning Department has received a request to vacate an easement. During the process, our staff, Lisa Lozier, especially worked with the Department of Transportation and to make sure that we covered all the bases regarding this easement vacation. The action before you today is to approve the request to vacate a portion of a 33-foot easement. It's common to a parcel boundary between assessors parcels 024-51045 and 024-51046. This location is in the Weaverville area, specifically at the intersection of Martin Road and Highway 299. The existing general plan designation is commercial and the zoning is commercial retail. The existing land use, there is a older commercial building that is on the site and built across the property line. Surrounding uses are also commercial. This request is for an easement reserve by the Bureau of Land Management. And in this area of Weaverville, which would be the eastern portion of Weaverville, this is very common along the Martin Road, Ransom Road area, where these blanket easements were placed years ago and are not being utilized in most cases. Unfortunately, these blanket easements do constrain the uses on the property and very much the potential building area of these parcels. So easements were secured through land patents, and the landowner of the two parcels would like to have this removed for potential further commercial development. And although we did, note in the staff report unknown fiscal impact, by having more available commercial land that's buildable to its highest and best use is a benefit to the county that could result in increased tax dollars. So this item, we did have a very quick turnaround on this item. It was brought before the Planning Commission last Thursday, and it was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission by unanimous 4-0 vote. So you do have a signed resolution, as Susie Hawkins mentioned, a signed resolution by the Planning Commission Chair, Stewart, and also an updated board resolution on this item. So I'll leave it at that. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions from the board? None. Any public comment on this item, Susie?
I'm seeing none on Zoom, but I do believe we have comments in the room.
Yeah, Darrell Forthen from Weaverville. A couple things. One of the things I wanted to do is thank both the Planning Department and the administration for moving this forward. We lost a little bit of time on this project because of meetings that didn't happen with the Planning Department. Planning Commission had a couple of meetings that they didn't have because of COVID. And so it kind of ran the time up a little bit longer, but we were able to expedite it with the help of both the Planning Department and the admin. So we want to thank them for that effort. If you have any questions, what it amounts to is that there's a 66-foot wide easement through the middle of those two lots. The existing building probably sits on one of those easements right now. but it really does, there's 2 parcels sitting there, but it does really impact the ability to actually develop them to any great significance. So there's an easement around the perimeter of the lot still, which remains in place, but the easement running through the middle of the 2 lots really is what we're looking to get removed from, and it will in fact take what amounts to a parcel that's practically, theoretically, a really valuable parcel because it's sitting on the corner of Martin Road and 299, and turning into something probably will be developed to a great extent. So appreciate any, and I can answer any questions that you have that Kim didn't deal with. So
We're good?
I have a question.
Oh, that was
It's more of a historical question. Where did BLM get these right-of-ways and why were they issued in the first place?
well, as you may be aware, the Small Tract Act, which is an act that was used extensively in the 1960s for BLM. BLM's one of their original marching orders was actually disposing of federal lands. And so they created a series of small tract lots down, basically down the straight stretch from Martin Road almost down to Performing Arts Center. And those lots were unimproved lots, and they typically reserved an easement around the perimeter of the lot to provide access to the remaining lots. And so the language says reserving the right-of-way for roadway and public utilities around the perimeter, or sometimes it would be along one side or the other, but it really was an idea that they would have some kind of a road system that would be in place potentially for people to use. They didn't build any roads. What the BLM considered to be is essentially a dedication of a roadway, and the way that dedication got accepted is somebody actually utilized it. In this case, it never got utilized, and in fact doesn't mean anything because Martin Road serves the same purpose that the BLM right-of-ways would have served, and so that'd be usable. But the BLM, in almost all of their small tract possessions, or same thing on Ohio Hill over in Lewiston, they reserved easements around the perimeter of those lots so that people can get to the lots that weren't on the main road. So,
Thank you.
all right. I would entertain a motion on this resolution.
Yeah, I would put forward a motion to adopt this 5.6 as stated in our letter here.
I'll second that.
All right. We've got a motion from Supervisor Gogan and a second from Supervisor Cox.
Supervisor Cox? Aye. Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
Resolution is approved. All right, we will go into our first subsequent item now, subsequent item 7.1. And we have requested action to appoint Todd Heaton as District 5 representative on the Planning Commission to serve a 4-year term concurrent with Supervisor Frazier. Supervisor Frazier, I'll pass this off to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry to bring this as a subsequent. I got the formal request to be on the Planning Commission at 6 o'clock on Friday, so it was a little difficult to get it on the agenda. I would like to move forward with this to stop any potential issues we have at the Planning Commission where we would have quorum issues or a tie vote operating with only 4, and to have representation from District 5 at that level.
All right. Do you have any technical questions from the board?
I don't know Todd Heaton, so just some background.
Actually, a local guy born and raised in Southern Trinity, worked in the timber industry, carpentry, now the pastor of Ruth Community Church. Just a nice guy that gets along with everyone well, which was my primary goal when I was looking for a commissioner.
It's hard to find one, I know that. So if you found a good one, I would go with it.
All right. Susie, is there any public comment out there?
I am not seeing any, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Then, I I believe the email was circulated with the interested parties application. If anyone does want to read that, it should be in your email. Otherwise, you could entertain a motion on this item.
I motion to pass this item.
I will second that.
You're dying.
We've got a motion from Supervisor Gogan and a second from Supervisor Frazier. Susie, please pull the board.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox? Aye. Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Motion passes, and congratulations to Todd Eden. Next is subsequent item 7.2, and I'll apologize for not getting this on the agenda. However, this is an important issue. All the rural counties are pretty much on the same page with RCRC. So again, in your email, there's a couple of things mailed. I will take the liberty to read. What's up?
I emailed you some agenda language.
Oh, yes,
The actual item?
I apologize. Item 7.2, authorize the chairman to sign a letter regarding proposed revisions to the state minimum fire safe regulations. So I'll go over a couple of the talking points here. These regulations will have an immense impact on rural California. It's critical to take the necessary time to produce sensible provisions. The proposed regulations would establish, quote-unquote, no-build zones throughout large swaths of California, including any area served by public roads deemed substandard by BOF. And maybe at some point, Director Tippett can chime in now or at a later time to talk about what substandard roads mean, but I have a feeling he may be familiar. And some of the additional information with the Board of Forestry, it makes it so that it's all state regulated and it's not waivable by local jurisdiction. So if there's specific questions about it, I know the planning department is engaged in some of the communication and meetings going on. There is a meeting on the 22nd in which members or county members have been requested to attend and make a comment on these regulations. But as stated in the item, I am requesting support to sign this letter and send it in. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to attempt to answer them to my best of my knowledge. A lot of information is in the stuff that was circulated.
Mr. Chair, would you want to take a few minute break to allow the board to read the information that you sent out?
Yeah, and for the public's sake, why don't I just go ahead and blab the whole letter, because they don't have access to it, and we'll see who finishes first. So, on behalf of Blank County Board of Supervisors, we wish to register our strong opposition to the most recent draft of the Board of Forestry's proposed fire safe regulations revisions. The new regulations proposed by Board of Forestry staff will have dire consequences for many communities throughout the state, effectively prohibiting residential construction and business expansion in large parts of our counties. In recent years, the legislature has focused on creating progressive fire safe and wildfire risk reduction policies for the state. These efforts have consistently recognized both the important role of local planning processes in achieving fire safe communities and the need to balance these important goals with the equally critical and often competing housing needs of our residents. Governor Newsom reiterated that point in his veto message for major fire planning legislation last year in Senate Bill 182, urging that wildfire resilience must become a more consistent part of land use and development decisions. However, it must be done while meeting our housing needs. The proposed regulations would similarly, would in summary deem many miles of existing public roads throughout the state substandard and would require immensely costly upgrades as a condition of building or rebuilding a single residential unit. at the property's owner's expense. Even more onerous and often infeasible improvement requirements would apply to the creation of even a single new parcel, no matter how large, or any change to a use permit or zoning, no matter how minor. Such requirements will certainly affect the state's ability to address the housing crisis, especially in more rural, less economically advantaged parts of California. Board of Forestry staff have been unable to provide any estimate of the number of housing units these regulations would prevent or render unaffordable. But it will unquestionably be large, given that these restrictions apply to an area containing approximately 1/4 of California's housing stock. In addition to the effects on housing, the proposed regulations would apply the same restrictions and improvement requirements to any business that proposes to increase service capacity, such as adding an outside seating area to accommodate social distancing requirements. This will seriously threaten many of the remaining small businesses that have been struggling to survive during the pandemic, and we will eliminate any prospect of business growth in large swaths of the state. As above, BOF staff cannot provide any assessment of the number of small businesses jeopardized by this proposal, but it is substantial. More broadly, this regulatory proposal ignores the realities on the ground. There are unacknowledged environmental impacts of changing the width or grade of a road that have not been meaningfully considered at any point during the BOF's process. Additionally, even if upgrading road is feasible and not environmentally damaging, the costs are extraordinary and unreasonable for a small business or property owner to bear. BOF staff have repeatedly stated that the full impacts of the regulations are unknown and that additional information is needed, but have nonetheless rushed this process forward. There is clearly a need to broaden the drafting discussion to include the full range of subject matter experts with on-the-ground experience in local land use, planning, and administration. Almost done. Unfortunately, it appears the BOF lacks real interest in considering the concerns of those most involved and impacted by the regulations at the local level. At the March 3rd board meeting, numerous representatives of local governments, local fire officials, and statewide associations all called on the board to slow the process down and engage in meaningful stakeholder conversations before moving forward. However, the BOF ignored these requests and directed staff to schedule a special meeting for the sole purpose of expediting board action on the proposal. We hope the BOF reconsiders moving forward in this manner. We appreciate BOF's desire to move forward with all deliberate speed and understand that the current fire safe regulations will become applicable to portions of the local responsibility area on July 1st, 2021. Many counties have been administering those regulations in the state responsibility area for years and can apply those well-known rules to the LRA for a few more months without difficulty. Those existing provisions could indeed benefit from upgrading if done in a deliberate fashion, but no provision of the governing law nor any state policy mandates that BOF act in haste. The proposed changes, the fire safe regulations, are lengthy, complex, and far-reaching. Yet the board is poised to make a decision on a proposal that was first released in draft form December 1st of 2020, less than 6 months ago. We urge BOF to take the necessary time to truly partner with local governments and allow a robust discussion with all interested parties on possible revisions to the fire safe standards of the future. Thank you for your patience on that. Any questions now that we've read it? Any public comment out there, Susie?
Chairman, I am not.
I would like to comment.
Please go ahead. Your service may be unserviceable. So.
Well, I would like to on this item.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Chair and Supervisors. John Brower from Johnson City. I'd like to thank Supervisor Brown for his engagement with the Board of Forestry on this important subject and the position that's come about with RCD. And I think we should support our neighboring counties on this important matter, and I think it's a really well-written letter. So I encourage the support of this letter, and Trinity stands to lose any sort of local control over our development in our county, or even retaining our existing housing without pushing back on this. So I think it's timely, and I think it's important, and I encourage the board to sign on to this letter. Thank you.
Any additional public comment? All right.
Chairman Brown, I am not seeing anybody else unmuting themselves or raising their hand or commenting, requesting to speak.
Okay. Any additional debate on this item, or does everyone have a motion?
Jeremy, I want to thank you for bringing this forward. I had heard about this, but hadn't paid much attention. To me, this would just devastate Trinity County, and any development would be just destroyed, except for in downtown developed areas. So I would move that we sign this letter and try to somehow make sure we get a say, if it's through RCRC or something in the process, to stay engaged in this.
Yeah, and that meeting is on the 22nd. I can send out, or Susie or someone from the office can send out a link to that meeting. And I want to thank Supervisor Cox for reminding me to bring this to our attention, because yeah, we had discussed it a number of months ago and to keep an eye on it, and I guess the Board of Forestry is getting a little more aggressive with their determining timeline. So
Chairman Brown, we do have a motion on the floor.
Oh,
And I will second that motion.
Now you're free to discuss.
all right, we have a motion and a second. So yeah,
I do want to add some to that. Reading over some of those new proposed regulations would make it impossible to rebuild after the August complex. And seeing the events that occurred during that, fire safe regulation wasn't what saved the houses that were saved in that fire. The only deciding factor in whether houses were saved or lost was manpower. So I don't support more restrictive regulation on people being able to build in rural areas. It won't save your house anyway unless there's somebody there to man the defensible space and use the water that's required. So I'm very much in support of this letter.
thank you, Supervisor Frazier. Supervisor Gilligan?
I support.
We're not voting yet. You got any questions?
I'm here with Dan says.
I'm curious, beyond the letter, how strong of a seat we get at any table that speaks to this. What does that look like?
Well, the actual meeting itself on the 22nd, I believe anyone can join in. It is a public meeting. So, like I said, I can make sure that the meeting information is circulated, and I know we're not the only ones that have this contentment with it, and so there are lots of other supervisors in counties that are taking that position. So I think as many of, and I don't know, I guess maybe you and I as RCRC members should plan on joining that on the 22nd, and then you can find out from the legal perspective, if more people can call in, also from the board, or if that's an issue, or if Supervisor Frazier can call in as a member of the public, or as his business profession details, and provide those viewpoints. So maybe we can.
He can call in as a District 5 supervisor. He doesn't. You're representing.
I can't call in as a representative of Trinity County, but I can as my
district. Your district.
District 5, yeah.
So yeah, I'll make sure that the information is circulated, and
I'll get it to you right now.
what's that?
I'll get it to you right now.
Okay, and then as far as the letter goes, Margaret, are you out there?
I am.
With that draft letter, do I need to bring back a final draft to the board, or can that be our final?
You do not need to bring back a final draft unless there's a request from the 3 board members to do so. The board can have authority to sign it based on what you presented today.
Okay, well then I'm glad I read the whole thing.
We're gonna put 2 people on their board, just so we have a seat too.
Right, you can speak into the microphone so everyone can hear. Speak into the mic so everyone can hear.
So we're gonna put 2 people on this board to represent our county?
Well, the RCRC board already has myself and Supervisor Cox as representatives. So this Board of Forestry, we are members as a county, and I believe someone from Planning Department sits in on those meetings. I do not think that position is formally appointed or distinguished by us appointing someone to it, but I believe the Planning Department has been sitting in on those Board of Forestry meetings. I can get clarity on that and double check that.
Chairman Brown?
I think Director Hunter has a comment. Yes, please.
Yes, Deputy Director Lisa Lozier sits in on that meeting, and those meetings, and is monitoring the situation. Just wanted to confirm from our department.
Thank you. So I believe CEO Coons has circulated the meeting notice and agenda. So I think it would be important for as many of us as possible to listen in and make a comment. Any additional discussion on this item?
I think it's, to kind of answer what my view of your question was, is RCRC is the most powerful voice that you can throw in this into, because they'll have the ability, or the Board of Forestry should listen to them and maybe even negotiate it at some point, unless they're just telling us to pack sand. So that's the most important one to take a look at.
And I'll double check that we may have to register to make sure we're in the meeting, so there'll be a follow-up on that before the 22nd in your email.
All right.
All right, so we have a motion and a second still. Susie, could you please poll the board?
Absolutely. Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox? Aye. Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Motion passes. We will now go into item, I believe, 5.2 is what I said we were going to do first.
5.1.
5.1. Well, I'm going to actually move it. I said 5.2, so I'm going to move it.
Chairman Brown, we have a conflict with our outside counsel's availability. He's not available yet. So if we could do 5.1 first.
Well, I'll go a little bit farther on that in regards to 5.2. Essentially, new information has been received and we need to have further consulting with our county council before we can discuss this item. So I'm requesting to either table it into a special meeting, which could be held later today or tomorrow. I guess it'd have to be tomorrow.
Could be later today,
Okay.
as long as you give 24-hour noticing.
Just
trail the meeting.
We can continue.
Recess.
We can recess until
a later
today.
time today, but if we wanted to continue it entirely.
Okay. Margaret, would you like to make any comment on this?
No, I think your request is appropriate. I did reach out to outside counsel and he is not currently available. So I do agree that the board should have an opportunity to talk with him before they move forward. So I request.
Okay, so seeing that
at least give him time that occur.
It is almost 11 o'clock, and we do have closed session and also item 5.1.
Chair, if I may make a suggestion that we look at doing it at a special meeting. Again, we would want to agendize a closed session prior to meet with council before we come out, and that would have to be the 24-hour notice.
Okay.
So I would request that we would do it on another day.
So will the supervisors please look at your calendars if you may and see if you have available the,
Chairman Brown, we could also just pull it from consideration today, and then we can work outside of the regular meeting to schedule a special meeting and notice it with the 24-hour requirement.
okay,
If you just,
So
if you'd like. We could pull the item from consideration today, and then we'll work outside of this meeting once we're all done to schedule, I'll work with each of you to schedule a special meeting, and then notice pursuant to the Brown Act, the 24-hour requirements.
Sure.
And then that way we can work with everybody and make sure everybody's available.
okay. Well, hopefully, I would request that it be this week.
Yep, we can look at.
Friday is my only day.
I don't have Friday off.
I mean, without getting a hold of our outside counsel, we aren't in a position to engage with this item. So either you could postpone it until, I would say, 2 o'clock today, if that would be appropriate. And that would give time for outside counsel to double check their scheduling ability for the rest of the day and hopefully fulfill that 2 o'clock deadline. Would that be okay with the board to attempt the 2 o'clock with that item?
Yes.
All right.
Chairman Brown, I don't believe that gives you a chance to meet with outside counsel in a full session, though.
Oh, no, we don't. I don't think we need to do the closed session yet. We'll try for the 2 o'clock and see what is determined at that point, if that's okay.
So we're assuming he'll be available at that time, right now?
Margaret, do you think that's safe to say he'll be available at 2 o'clock? Or would you prefer that we don't make any assumptions and just do a special meeting? Which seems like it may be challenging.
I can't promise he'll be available. I know he is currently busy and is not responding because he's in the middle of something, so I can't get confirmation. I can continue to reach out to him while you finish this meeting up and find out if he'll be available to let you know if he won't.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I do think just, there's a lot of people that want to comment on this, and I think in fairness to the public, we should try to not string them along. If we have a meeting with Derek in private, that's fine, but to actually set up a special meeting would be.
That's fine. There's just new information that has been discovered that is relevant to this.
No, I understand that. And,
okay.
And for us to meet, that's fine, but it's not quite fair to the public who has already sat here for several hours and then tell them to call back at 2, and then I think having a set time in the future would be a better alternative. And since this is really not a time-sensitive matter.
It is, actually.
Very much so.
There is new information that makes it a time-sensitive matter.
Well, so I'm out of touch of what's going on.
So, Margaret, would you just prefer that we attempt a special meeting even though we don't know if it's going to happen this week or not?
That would be my request from a convenient standpoint, but it's your pleasure how you want to proceed.
Okay. I would request that if we could adjourn for 10 minutes here, and we will resume the meeting at 11:10 and continue the discussion on that. Is that okay? There, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just don't let us log on to Zoom and we'll have to watch
Jeremy, are you
what
ready for me
let
to
us.
come back live so you can hold back order?
Hold on, let me breathe life into my devices.
All right, well, I gotta breathe life into all of mine too,
Okay,
so.
yeah, go ahead.
To wave the wand and T-Pud's meter starting.
I'm good, I got it.
Okay, mics are on, we're back live there, and I am stopping the screen share.
All right.
So,
Okay, so we were discussing item 5.2 and whether or not it was going to be continued later. I would like to request that this item be tabled until the next board meeting. And I would further request that we have an emergency closed session meeting on this item in advance of that following public meeting. And this is due to new important information that is relevant to this case. So I believe, Margaret, I can just do that, right? Do I need the board's approval?
The item's been read, I'd ask you to do it by vote. So we need a motion and a second.
All right, so I would look for a motion.
I would pass this motion as put forth by Jeremy.
And I'll go ahead and second the motion. Susie, you have a motion from Supervisor Gogan and a second from myself, Supervisor Brown. And this motion is to table this current item as it is presented, and also to request an emergency closed session meeting as well.
Mr. Chair, my question is, the emergency meeting would be, why are we saying it's an emergency?
Because
It's, yeah, I wanted to.
It's a special meeting. He's requesting a special meeting.
Okay, thank you. I needed some clarification on that. And schedule a special closed session. Okay.
And that specialness constitutes an emergency to where we have to figure out how to clear our calendar quickly?
That's a conversation that we can have outside of this board meeting in scheduling of a special meeting. Special meetings per the Brown Act require 24-hour notice.
And just to clarify, Jeremy, you didn't mean you wanted a special closed session, emergency closed session on today's agenda, did you?
No, with the proper notification, so.
Perfect.
It would have to be no sooner than Thursday, Friday, or perhaps on Monday, but it will be dependent on our outside counsel, so hopefully you can help secure that scheduling with Mr. Cole.
Chairman, I'll start working on that as soon as we're done with the open session part of today's meeting.
All right, thank you so much.
Are you ready for me to pull the board?
Unless there are any more.
Can you clarify the motion?
The motion is to table this item to April 6th and a request to schedule a special board meeting to hold a closed session regarding this litigation at a later date and time that will be noticed pursuant to the Brown Act.
The new information gathered.
I don't really, yeah, during your closed session, you'll discuss the new information gathered.
Right. Okay.
If there's no additional comments or discussion.
Well, I have a little bit of discussion because I'm really confused. I felt like we had something on the calendar that was time sensitive, and suddenly we don't have to make a decision until April the 6th, so I'm confused by that.
Margaret, do you want to speak to this, or you want me to? I don't mind.
Speak to this because I believe it's a more procedural versus legal question.
Okay. So I feel as chairman that the information is valid to constitute a special meeting in advance of our April 6th meeting. So the details of that we would discuss at our closed session meeting, and the outcome of that would be discussed and shared at our following public meeting.
I see.
So you don't consider, it's not time sensitive. No. Passing this ordinance is not time sensitive.
This is not an ordinance.
I misspoke.
No, the
5.2, you're not deeming as time sensitive, so we're delaying that off until the next meeting. And we're
Correct.
just requesting that we talk to council before we have the next meeting.
yes, to discuss this new information. That is exactly it.
Okay.
I don't know if this is appropriate to ask or not, you can just tell me that. But when we have this special meeting to learn whatever it is that we don't know right now, is there any possibility that we're not going to handle this matter in public? Or you're just saying we are going to handle it and decide in public, but we're going to do that for sure on April the 6th?
Well, this exact item as presented will be discussed on the April 6th meeting. So this item is just simply being tabled into the next meeting. The information I'd like to discuss at the closed session meeting may prove to be relevant, it may prove to not be relevant to this item as it stands.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, Susie, please pull the board.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. So our next item is going to be, I believe, what do they have? 5.1, agriculture. Discuss and provide direction regarding the draft ordinance banning the cultivation of industrial hemp in Trinity County. No fiscal impact. Due to my cannabis cultivation permit, I will be recusing myself from this item, and Vice Chair Frazier will be taking over.
I'm going to do a lot of this one.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, item 5.1 is discussion and providing direction regarding the draft ordinance banning the cultivation of industrial hemp in Trinity County. Contact is Joseph Moreo, Agricultural Commissioner. Joe?
So, 2 weeks ago at the board meeting, we wanted to get the information to you, and then also after you, the public. So it's been 2 weeks. Other than occasional opinions of support from cannabis growers, not surprisingly, we haven't heard any. I haven't had any potential hemp either producers, groups contact us. So basically, we haven't had any input on the hemp side, and like I said, occasional voices of support from cannabis growers, and that's the only thing that's happened through our office in the last 2 weeks. So today's the day to come back and pull the board for, had time to look at it, meet with their constituents, take input, and take questions.
I would like to make a motion that we come back revisit it in 3 years.
Do we have any technical questions?
You did have a motion.
Okay, well, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, motion and a second. Commissioner, or Supervisor Kogan.
Yeah, thank you for changing the sunset clause to 3 years. I appreciate that. My request in that at our last meeting was because I really wanted to see it tied to the completion of the general plan. And if not so much by date as by principle, because I think that it's really important that we become very aware and kind of locked in to the guidance that a general plan would give to our county. And so when I said, hey, I'd love to see it at 3 years, that was because I had said, CAO Coons, how long is this general plan supposed to take? And he had said 3 years. But we all know that sometimes our wishes and our reality, sometimes glorious vision is flawed reality. So what I would ask today, if the board is favorable to that, is to say that that sunset clause equals the completion of the general plan plus 6 months. I think it would be not advantageous to have them both expire at the same time. Have the sunset clause come up at the same time that the general plan is done. There's no time to think or respond thoughtfully. So if we had 6 months beyond that, and it's not a hill I'm going to die on for sure. I just think that it's one of those things where I just would like us to see, I would like to see us very much dialed into the general plan as kind of a guiding light going forward. So that's my thought.
After the previous board's discussion, I thought about it. Well, really, with the 2 emergencies plus the 3-year, that's almost 5 anyway. So de facto, at the end of this, should this pass today, at the end of it, it'll be 4.5 years, right? That we've been under a moratorium or ban.
Sure. Is there any problem in changing the wording to just let it read completion of the general plan plus 6 months? Or do you need to put an actual time on it?
This part we're ambivalent to, I guess I would say, for the board to discuss and come, whatever you guys determine is what we would go with.
Okay.
We don't really have unless there's someone out in the public with a viewpoint, we want to establish this because the clock is ticking and the moratorium will run out. And we do not want to be caught, as we were previous, without any protection.
Understandable.
And,
most certainly.
And the major impetus behind this is, like we had said, well, it's probably range war is not the right term. I don't know what the right term is, but conflict is what we want to avoid. And we really feel this is the smartest play for the county in terms of most bang for the buck. And without it, we will be placed in the position of being the middleman between those 2 groups, which is a place we don't particularly want to be.
With that information, I would offer an alternate motion that...
Can we hold up there, because we did kind of jump the gun here. This is a public hearing, and we've jumped right into making motions and subsequent motions, and we haven't even held a public hearing yet. So I would like to pull it back and let's kind of regain control of this item before we get too far into the weeds.
So what, Mr. Chair, the motion was to table it, wasn't it?
It essentially was to revisit it in 3 years, and I don't know if that was, if Liam was actually saying to table this for 3 years and revisit this, or if you're saying if he was making a motion to have the 3-year sunset clause. So I think we should, unless you are making a motion to table this for 3 years, Supervisor Hogan, I think we should open up the public comment.
I think the public should have comment.
So what was your motion?
My motion was to revisit this in 3 years. Have a sunset clause in 3 years.
Okay, so you were talking about sunset clause, and we will address that at a later time rather than tabling this item. So with that, if there's no technical questions from supervisors for Joe, I will open up the public comment on this item. Do we have any public comment?
Jeff, I apologize. I'm going to butcher your last name.
Hi, Jeff. Yeah, sort of. Jeff Gadella, Xenia. I'd just like to support the board on banning this for as long as possible. It's not the right move for Trinity County. I am encouraged, though, that some of you want to allow more cannabis production in the county. I think that would be a good thing. I just don't think it should be the hemp cultivar. It needs to be the THC cultivar, because that's what we're good at, and that's what Trinity County's topography and cultural are predisposed to do. So It all smells the same. It all uses the same water. It's basically the same plant, except for some cannabinoids it develops. And I don't know. Anybody who says otherwise is being manipulative. It's the same plant. So you know, I support the ban for as long as possible. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. And then we have Carla Avila.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, this is Carla Avila from High and Palm. I am the Executive Director of Trinity County Agricultural Alliance, and I want to thank the board and the Agricultural Commissioner for bringing this item forward and for being so proactive with this hemp issue. And I want to just reiterate everything that Jeff Gatella said was very well worded, and TCAA supports this ordinance and the ban on hemp, as Agricultural Commissioner Joe Moreo has put it forward. And we definitely support, as Jeff Gatella mentioned, keeping this in place as long as possible. I won't waste the board's time because I know you know that we support this, but I want to thank you for being proactive and for your comments on appropriate land uses and how we can move forward for a better, more positive future for all of us, and really find solution-oriented ways to honor our general plan as well as the needs of our citizens. So thank you for putting this forward, and we hope you will approve it.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Walter Wood.
Hello, and thank you very much. I just want to second what the last two have said, what Carla and the previous person said. I support the ban on the hemp. It is, yeah, just everything it said. I don't want to waste your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And next we have Tom Malenko.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I think everybody knows my position on the ban, but I did want to speak to the one kind of repeating mythology that I'm hearing here about water use. Cannabis is not some ridiculously consumptive water crop. It's not like cotton. It uses less than alfalfa. It is analogous to corn or tomatoes, using somewhere between 1 to 2 acre feet in a season. That is not a tremendous amount of water when that water is source culture. Yes, rampant cannabis cultivation at the headwaters of streams in critical habitats has wreaked havoc. We all know that. That's true. Appropriately regulated and provided cannabis cultivation, be it THC cannabis or hemp, can use water probably more sustainable than most other crops. We're not putting restrictions on how much alfalfa everybody can grow. That is a non-issue. I get the pollen drift stuff, but this is not about water. Agriculture is an appropriate use of water. Trinity County, albeit in a critically dry year, is water rich. We should be looking at ways to encourage our beneficial use of water. You know, you're going to do what you're going to do with this ban, but it's not because of the water. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public commenters?
I'd like to comment.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Joe Brower from Junction City. Like Mr. Colombo, I'm also torn in the county prohibiting the cultivation of a plant, especially a harmless plant. However, I do agree with Supervisor Groves at the last meeting where this is addressed that this particular matter is very unique to our region. It's important to our region. In fact, I agree with Supervisor Gross. This is a matter of health and safety. And a ban on hemp makes an awful lot of sense here at this time. So I encourage the board to approve the ban with a sunset date. I think 5 years would be a minimum time frame to continue the ban. And it can be taken a look at a further time down the road when we all know more. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other commenters on Zoom?
It does not appear so.
Okay, with that, we will close the public comment and bring it back to the board. And seems we do have some minor housekeeping issues we need to deal with. We have a motion and a second on the table that we need to deal with, or we need a subsequent motion.
I'd like to make a subsequent if I could.
Yes.
I would move that the sunset clause be placed at the completion of the general plan plus 6 months, so that we tie our thinking with our land use matters together with our general plan outcome.
And are you making a motion to approve this with those changes?
Yes.
So, since this is a discussion item, there's not actually anything that we are approving.
We're not actually approving.
We're not actually approving anything. It would be discussion to staff to bring it back.
With that change?
With the change to the sunset clause? Is that correct, Supervisor Cox?
It is now.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm not sure I agree with just after the general plan. I don't think there's going to be a big day where we just all cut the ribbon on the general plan and say it's done.
Supervisor Gross, we don't have a second on that, so could we confirm that we're not going to get a second and that Jill's motion is going to die?
Well, if we're not making decisions, we're just giving direction anyway, right?
We are, but we do have an actual, she did make a motion.
All right.
To give that direction, so.
Yes, ma'am, I will.
Is anyone interested in seconding that motion?
If we don't, can it come back to discussion?
Well, if it don't, that motion will die and someone will need to make another motion.
And since we also, yes, sure, Supervisor Groves, we probably do need a motion, though, since we do have a motion on the table. Margaret, maybe you want to weigh in here for us a little bit?
Come on.
If it dies for no, for like a second, then we go back to the first one.
We would go back to.
We have a motion a second, so we can go back to discussion.
Don't we have the same problem last time, though? Since it's a discussion item, we don't need a motion at all?
We technically don't need a motion because it is a discussion item.
Even the first one?
Yeah.
That is correct. We do not need a motion on this item. However, you can give direction by way of a motion if that's your pleasure.
Oh.
Or up your motion and just give direction.
Okay, so in a house cleaning effort,
I think you have to
speaking to your microphone, please.
So considering we don't have a specific date for our plan to be done, this could be 3 years, 10 years, 12 years, who knows how long. I think that it would be my wish to revisit it in...
Yeah, we're slipping back into discussion again, so either second the motion or we'll say this motion is dead. It looks like this motion is dead for lack of a second. And then we would slip back to Supervisor Gogan's motion, which was essentially to table this item for 3 years. So the way it was stated, so you would either need to, we can open discussion again on that motion.
I will make a subsequent, and then I will ask the ordinance to sunset at 5 years. And at that date, if the general plan is not completed, the board can make a move at that time to extend it. But I think even with or without the general plan will be land use. Some of this is technology and agriculture. And there may be advancements, there may be not advancements. So I don't necessarily think they should be tied together. But I think a 5-year period is probably more realistic than 3 because you'll blink your eyes and it's 3 years. So that's my subsequent.
We have a subsequent motion. Would anyone care to second that?
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I would.
Would you like me to pull the board?
Yes, we can pull the board, and this will be on Supervisor Grove's motion to
direct staff to bring an ordinance back to the board with a sunset of 5 years.
Correct.
Okay. Supervisor Gogan?
Yes.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox? Aye. Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
So, settled on 5, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
One hand.
I'm all still. Can I respond to the public who had called in? Or is it too late?
I think we'll actually have another chance at this very soon to respond to public input.
It's really quick.
Okay, sure.
First off, for Jeff, hang in there, guy. He was heavily impacted by the fire, wiped out. So glad to hear his voice. And congratulations, Carla. She got promoted to executive director. I don't disagree with Tom Belanco's water analysis. It's pretty much spot on. It's not a water intensive crop like cotton. He's correct. And we've settled on 5, so thank you. We don't have an issue of the sunset time. That was one of the board's prerogatives. We were just going to go with whatever you decided. So we didn't really have a recommendation in terms of how to sunset or how long it should be or any of that. We just understand that we have a problem with the updating of the general plan. And by experience, both Margaret and Kim worked in MODOC, where I worked before, where I retired out of, who were also redoing their general plan, and I know that things take time. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. All right.
And Mr. Chair, since Jeremy, you can come in.
That's what I was going to say. Can we call Jeremy back in here yet?
I would like to point something out that I was going to point out during the item that we've extended until the next meeting, that some of the people may have not realized that today in our passing of the employee allotments, that we did add today 5 employees allotments to the planning and cannabis division. So I just want to make sure that didn't get missed by the community out there.
Chairman Brown, you
are
in control again.
Oh,
straighten us back out.
Let's go. So, I believe we are at, and correct me if I'm wrong, this brings us to the closed session. Item 6.1, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Item 6.1, Government Code Section 54956.95, Liability Claim, number of cases 2. Claimant 1, Megan Marshall, claim number TIBV-600110. Claimant 2, Travis Perkins, claim number TIBW-600009. Do you have any public comment on this item?
Before we close, you want to report out from yesterday's closed session?
Oh.
Chairman Brown, I do not see any public comment on today's closed session.
Okay. And regarding, Margaret, can you tell me what yesterday's closed session item number was?
1.1.
It was
Oh,
Special.
that's right.
So it's just staff, direction to staff.
So from yesterday's closed session, item 1.1 direction was giving to staff regarding negotiations. And with that, we will go into closed session. Thank you so much.